Hey, welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. And today is finally the day that I'm gonna build this monster Linux PC. As you can see here, I've got everything ready. Now, before I begin, I want to give a big thank you for my brother, because he's actually the one who got all of these parts, and at the same time, he got them at really amazing prices. And later on in this video, I'll leave a comparison of showing how much my brother saved me. And the reason why my brother did all of this is because I myself have not built a PC, I think, since the AMD Athlon days. So if you can remember that, that is a while ago. And at the same time, I'm not really familiar with a modern PC building, and so I wasn't even familiar with, some of the parts and some of the different things that are available today. And so my brother definitely helped a lot in getting all this together, getting the ones that are definitely going to give me more power than I'll probably need for a while. And, if you are interested in watching all of my videos leading up to this, I do have a Linux PC build playlist. I'll leave it in the description below. And at the same time, I've actually been chronicling my whole journey on my website. That's also in the description below as well. And I'm also going to leave a list of all the parts in the description as well. They are affiliate links. So if you wanted to go ahead and check out any of these parts that I'm using, you could go down there below as well. And I'm really super excited to have this machine, and I have been really hesitant to actually get a modern PC. I'm pretty frugal when it comes to technology, but my pawn shop laptop, which is my main computer, just really couldn't handle the things that I needed to do nowadays, such as video editing, 4K, and also some modern gaming. So let's go ahead and finally get started on building this monster Linux PC. Okay, so I'm going to go through these step by step. So the first thing I'm going to do is start off with the motherboard itself. So with the motherboard, I'm actually going to put in the Intel Core i7 CPU. Then after that, I will put the Cryorig CPU cooling fan on top of it. And then I'll go ahead and put the RAM on the motherboard itself. Now, before I begin, the tools that I'm going to be using today is this screwdriver right here and my trusty cutting scissors. So let's go ahead and open this motherboard and get this out, and we'll go ahead and begin this process of getting this together. Okay, so this motherboard itself, I want to go over a few things. Some of the first things that I want to talk about is what's actually included with this motherboard. Now, this is actually a budget gaming motherboard. It is overclockable as well. However, it does not offer SLI. It does offer Crossfire. So if you are going to have two GPUs, just know that. So this is more of a budget gaming PC motherboard, and that's more than enough for me. Now, inside here, you actually have some cables for your hard drives, whether it be mechanical or SSD. You also got this is for your Bluetooth Wi-Fi, which I definitely am going to connect, and this goes with it as well. And then finally, the antennas that will go into your I/O port on the back, and here's the actual Bluetooth Wi-Fi chip that you actually are going to put in there. So that's there, and then at the same time, you also got some stickers to help mark your cables for better cable management. And then finally, you do have some software that you can install. However, I'm pretty sure this is not going to be for Linux, but it does work for Windows. So we'll see how that works, but this basically allows you to access some software, some utilities through the operating system itself instead of through the BIOS. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. However, let's go ahead and go to the motherboard next, and I'll go over briefly what the various parts are. Okay, so as everybody knows, static electricity is a big thing. So you want to make sure you have some metal or something that you are next to that you can touch. In this case, I have the Inwin case right next to me, so I just touch that. And at the same time, you just use the box as your basically work area that you could set your motherboard on. And let's briefly go over some of the things that it has. Like I said a little bit earlier, It does have 4 DIMM slots here, and this is going to allow you to add, I think, up to 64 gigs of memory, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's also some beefy heat sinks here. That's where your CPU is going to go. And here you actually have 2 PCIe slots for your GPUs. There's also 7 total PCI slots. And here's your I/O inputs right here. So you do have quite a wide array. You also have USB 3.1 in here as well. There's your Ethernet audio inputs as well. And then on the other side, you do have spots for USB 3.0 as well, and these are all at the bottom right here. These are all your connections that will hook up to your actual case itself for all your power and LED and so forth. And so this is going to be a pretty solid board for me, actually more than what I need. And here's the back. As I've probably mentioned in my earlier videos, I love the look of this MSI board, and at the same time, it's got a lot of what I'll need. And so let's go ahead and start getting the CPU and the CPU cooling fan and RAM on there. Okay, now that we got the motherboard out of the way, let's go ahead and start setting up the CPU and also the CPU cooling fan. And the reason that you want to get a third-party CPU cooling fan is because the stock CPU fans that you sometimes get with the processors, they just aren't enough if you are wanting to do a lot with your machine and you're going to be running it pretty hot. You want to keep your machine as cool as possible, and that requires a much more powerful cooling solution, especially on your CPU. So let's go ahead and get this Cryorig H7 set up first on the board, and then after that we're going to get the Intel i7 6700K on the board, and then we'll put the CPU cooling fan on top of it right after that. Okay, there, got the cooling fan out. Now I do want to mention one thing. Inside the box, you're going to find some additional things. First thing, when you open up these sides, I got the actual thermal paste to put on top of the CPU before I put the CPU cooling fan. Also got some additional fasteners as well. And the instruction manual is right in here. I'm not going to take that out. And then right here, this is the part that we're going to start off with the motherboard first. These are mounting brackets for the very rear of the motherboard itself. So this works for both AMD and Intel CPUs. So that's real nice. So let's go ahead and get this on there. We're going to go ahead and put this on the motherboard itself. Okay, so now before you go any further, I do want to mention that I recommend you get something to put all your screws in because you're going to have a lot of them. So I'm going to put all of them in this cup right here. So I'll leave it on the side. And what we're doing now is we're actually going to put the bracket in for the CPU cooling fan. It's actually on the back that we're going to put it in. And we're going to put it right here. And since this is an Intel chipset, you will have to arrange it a little differently with the bracket. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So here's the bracket right here. And as you open it, I don't know if you could see that, you'll notice that it says AMD right here. And that's if you have an AMD chipset. In this case, we have an Intel chipset. So if you turn it around, you'll see it says Intel right there, if you could see that. And the way you'll set it up is like this, at least for the Intels. Make sure the Intel or whatever CPU you have, the actual wording or label is facing outward. And then you could see that if you look at your board, it matches up. So if you put it right here, so that is the correct way to set it on there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take the screws that came with it. And these are screws that you could just tighten with your hands. And you'll see how they work. So they come with these. After we screw it in on the back, we'll put these on the front. And you'll see what I mean a little bit later. So I'm going to set this in a cup for now. So what I want to do is take these screws right here. And we're just going to set it. And whenever you do screws, you want to do it in a crisscross pattern. Like you do one side first, and then one side first, and then the other side. Typically, people who are new, they'll do both of them at the same time. And the reason you don't want to do that is because you're putting a lot more pressure on both sides. And that means things are not going to be in good balance. Okay, so you want to do it in a crisscross pattern. So the first thing I want to do, I want to put one here. So you just put it there, very simple. Then the next one right here. And then you do the same for the other two. Okay, so after we do that, we're going to go ahead and flip it over. So when you see, when you flip it over, you see the screws right there. And you put these on here. I don't remember the actual name, but you put it on there. And what happens is, once you get the CPU cooling, the CPU in here, and then the CPU cooling fan on top of it, you're going to go back to the back, and then you're going to screw it in, and this is going to automatically tighten it, okay? So we'll put that right there. Okay. Okay, so you know that's correct when you hear it snap, and then you see a little bit of the screws up here. So then whenever you set the CPU fan on top of it, it'll be able to screw, and then you can tighten it up from the back. So that is getting it ready for the CPU. So the next step is we're actually going to put the CPU on here, and then put the CPU cooling fan on top of it. Now, before you actually put the CPU, I just want to show you at the bottom of this actual CPU cooling fan. These right here, this is where your screw is going to go in, and they are adjustable. And you're definitely going to remove this before you put this on top of the CPU itself. Now, what I recommend you do is you go ahead and arrange it first, so you kind of know where the actual screws are going to go in, so that you don't have to try to adjust that whenever you put your CPU on top. So once you put your CPU on top and you put your thermal paste, you want it to be very easy, where you just set this on top and it lines up with the screws correctly. And like I said, these are adjustable and they move around. So let's go ahead and get the CPU in there. Okay, so the CPU of choice is going to be the Intel Core i7 6700K, and 6700K means this is unlocked, meaning that you can overclock this. Now, the minimum on this is 4 gigahertz, and I'm thinking you could probably overclock this to about 4.8 maybe. I'm probably going to try that later on, but not anytime soon. But the reason why you get the K series, it is a little bit pricier than the normal series, is because of the fact that you can definitely overclock it. So let's go ahead and take this out of the box and see what we got inside. Okay, as you open it, as you see the little manual right here for the processor. And here is the actual processor itself, and below that's where all the pins are, but actually you're going to be handling it from the top. And you really want to be careful how you handle this. It's pretty sturdy, but as you'll probably see in other videos, you definitely don't want to touch the top of it with your fingers when you take it out, because of the fact that the oils that get on there, it could basically mess with the heat dissipation on there. So yeah, you definitely want to hold it by the sides. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you where you should put it in right here, and we'll set this aside for a second. So as you see on the board, here's where you could actually put your CPU. Now there's a little switch right here, and all you do is just push it down and then push it to the side, and it'll just pop open. Very nice lever. And I would just leave the plastic on there, because whenever you put the CPU on there, it'll close automatically. And so you just push it up like this, and there you go. And you see that as on this particular CPU, there's a little dot down there, and that'll match up with the arrow that's on the CPU. There's a little arrow on the corner, so you'll match it up like this. And there's also 2 notches on top, and there's also 2 notches on top here. Now, as everybody stated on other videos, if you've seen it, you definitely do not want to force the CPU on here, because if you do, you could definitely damage the pins below, and that's pretty much going to mess up your CPU and break it. Okay, so like I said, you're going to take it from the sides. You want to be really careful. Okay, so you don't want to apply any pressure. You just want to let it set in there, and it'll just fall in. Okay, so everything falls in, and all you do is you just hold this really quick and put the lever down, and then as you're pushing it down, see, that should pop off, and there you go. The processor's in there. And now we're going to go ahead and apply the thermal paste, and then after that we're actually going to put the CPU cooling fan on top of it. Okay, so the CPU cooling fan actually comes with some thermal paste. You could actually definitely get different thermal paste if you like. And for this one, you just go ahead and remove this cover really quick. You just twist it. Okay. Now, there's been many different discussions on how much you should put in, but you know, a lot of people say just pea size. So you just want to put a little bit on top in the middle. I'll just squeeze that. It's a syringe. Okay. And I'm judging that should be enough. And you don't want to put too much or too little. So a lot of people suggest that should be good enough. Okay. So now, as I stated a little bit earlier, you know, you took a little bit of time to see the arrangement of the actual screws for your CPU cooling fan. Now, before you put it on there, you might want to see where your CPU power supply is. And so it's right next to it. And so I'm going to set my CPU cooling fan this way because it makes more sense that way, okay? And on top of it, you definitely want to remove this particular sticker before you place it on top. And we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay. So now, I'm going to set this on top. I want to make sure everything's as aligned as much as possible. Okay. So once you've set that on there, we're actually going to have to turn it around, and then we're actually going to have to tighten the screws in the back so that this sticks. Yeah, so this part's a little tricky because I definitely don't want to drop this. So I'm going to go ahead and get my screw and make sure I could screw this in as quickly as possible, but let's go ahead and turn this around. Turn this around, set it upside down. I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, but it's difficult to do it while holding the whole board. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and screw this, tighten it. Not too much, just a little bit at a time. And the way you tighten this, you tighten it until you can't turn it anymore, but after that, stop. Okay, you don't want to go too much because then you could damage the CPU. So that should be good enough. And the way you could tell is if you lift it, the CPU cooling fan doesn't fall off. So let's go ahead and turn this around. So as you can see, the CPU cooling fan is on there. Everything looks like it's tight. And also, you know, once the actual screws go in the right places, it will line up correctly, as you can see here. I'm not sure you could see there. And then at the same time, you could go ahead and connect your power supply, and usually it's right near the CPU. So this is actually for the CPU fan. So I have one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. It's right next to it. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. There we go. And, you know, I'm going to do some cable management later on. So I'm going to just maybe get a twisty tie just to twist that together. So that is it. We successfully got the CPU in there, and on top of it, got the CPU cooling fan as well. Okay, so now it's time to put in the memory, and what we have here is 16 gigs of DDR4 running at 3000 megahertz from Team, and this is actually Vulcan series. And before you actually put these in, you definitely want to check your motherboard manual to make sure that you understand how this is set up, specifically here on the memory, because if you're not using all 4 slots, and most people aren't, they're only going to use 2, you definitely want to not put it one right after another. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to take advantage of the dual channel setup. And so you definitely want to have one stick here on DIMM 2 and the other on DIMM 4. So that's DIMM 1, 2, 3, 4. So you want to put them right here. So another thing I like about this memory is that you can actually overclock this as well. So that's a nice bonus. So all you have to do is right here, see these are the switches. On some boards, they have switches on both sides, but this one only has a switch on one side. So that makes it a lot easier. So let's go ahead and put this memory in here. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is make sure your notches line up. So, you know, just do a little test. Don't push it in yet. So you see there and see they line up perfectly. So you just put a little force and then that'll lock. Okay, so we're there. nice and tight. And we'll do the same thing to the second DIMM, going in slot number 4. Great. So now we have our memory in here, and we are pretty much set up on the basics of setting up the board. Okay, next up, we're gonna get all this stuff in our case. And what I have here is this beautiful Inwin mid-tower case. This is the Inwin 303. And as you can see here, it's got a really nice, simple design. However, it is built really solid. And at the same time, I really like the fact that this one is different. And what I mean by that is when you open this up on the side, I'll open the tempered glass here in a second. You'll notice the setup is a little different from your traditional cases. So let me go ahead and open it up and you'll see what I mean. And I'll open up the tempered glass as well. So on the tempered glass side, it has a really simple switch. You just push it down and then it easily is removed. And from here, you can see that this is an extremely spacious case, especially being a mid-tower. Now, what's different about this Inwin case is the fact that traditionally the case is actually usually one chamber, meaning everything's on one side. There is some cable management on the other side, but then your power supply usually goes at the bottom. Now, what Inwin did different is they actually have a dual chamber setup, and I'm going to give you a closer view of that right now. Okay, so if you look here, this is the front part of it. This is the first chamber. So here is where your actual motherboard is going to be. And then here, you could actually set your SSDs here. And it has a really simple screw mechanism where you just unscrew this here. And then you could unscrew here up here. And then when you take these panels out, you put your SSDs on there. And there's actually even room for one more SSD on the front. And if you look at the bottom here, it even has a dust filter at the bottom. And once I start getting the cooling fans in, you see how this makes sense. So whenever you're looking at it now, it doesn't make as much sense. But here, as you can see, there's actually 7 PCI slots, plenty of slots. And, you know, this is going to allow you to do a pretty clean setup. So I'm going to go ahead and move over to the other side of the tower. So here's the other side, and this is where it's different. So your power supply is actually going to go right here, okay? And then you could also set some more fans up here. So, you know, there's pretty much 7 places where you could set fans. You could set 3 fans here, and the maximum size for fans is 120 millimeters. And then you could also probably put a radiator here as well, a radiator cooling fan, as long as it's a thin one. And then as you could see here, as you're going down, you could actually set some more hard drives here. So you just screw this off, and then you could actually screw in the hard drive, or you could even put more SSDs here as well. And like I said, the cable management is pretty nice, very easy to get access to. And the way they designed this is the reason why they did it this way is because they want a lot of airflow into your system, and so that it could keep your machine cool. And then on top of it, in the front, got a nice power button right here, and also some front inputs. It got some USB audio ports, and these are USB 3.0s, and I think these are USB 2.0. So pretty fully featured. The only thing that is lacking is optical drive bays. I'm really not digging that, but this is modern PCs, and most cases nowadays, they don't even add an optical drive. So let's go ahead and start getting things into this really nice looking Inwin 303 case. The thing I want to do is I actually want to get my power supply inside this case. And like I said, this is not designed like typical cases. Normally power supplies are either at the bottom or they're at the top horizontally. But this one's going to be a little bit different because of the way Inwin designed it. And also at the same time, don't forget your bag of goodies. It's got all your screws and twist ties and everything. I'll go over that a little bit later. But let's go ahead and get this fan in there. Okay, so here we got the EVGA or EVGA 550 watt gold power supply, and it is modular, which would definitely make things a lot easier when you're trying to keep your computer clean on the inside. So let's go ahead and pop this open real quick. And as you can see, manual, lots and lots of cables. However, they are labeled really well, so you don't get too confused. So let's go ahead and take this out. Okay, so we got a whole bunch of goodies in here. Here are the screws that you're going to use. It's also got a bag of more cables for more needs. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this and go ahead and set it. And I'm going to put the screws on there. And you'll see how different this is. And then later on, we'll go ahead and do our cables. But for now, I just want to get it in there. Now to think of it, let me go ahead and put in the cables first so that I don't have to try to force it in there whenever I'm putting this together. So you can see everything's neatly labeled. CPU, VGA, that's for your graphics cards. That's for your motherboard. And this is also for your motherboard. And then these are all your SATA devices, so your hard drives and so forth. So let's go ahead and plug this in right now so that I don't have to do it afterwards. So the first one I have is actually my motherboard. So this is pretty hefty. Okay, so one thing I want to mention is before you put this in here, make sure all your wires actually go down here. There's a spot for it, because if your wires are out here, you can't close your case. Now, in terms of which way to put it in, you put your fan facing this way, okay? So with the label facing out. So you just set that in here. And like I said, it is a different design, so there you go. And all your holes for your screws are going to line up. So we'll go ahead and put that in there in a crisscross pattern. Okay, so got my fan tightly secured, and all you'd have to do is just put your power supply cable in here and connect everything else, and we're ready to go, at least with the power supply portion. Now, before I put this actually inside the case itself, I wanted to do the Wi-Fi Bluetooth card. It's kind of a pain to do, but you want to have that in there just in case you need it. So first thing is, it's going to have this Wi-Fi Bluetooth. This is actually the card itself. And then there's a little housing there. And then you have about 3 screws that you're going to put in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to connect these little coils right here to the actual Bluetooth Wi-Fi card. So it's going to go right here. And then these are actually going to mount right here at the bottom. And we're going to put screws in there. And then after that, once you get all that done, then you'll put these and the antennas to increase the signal on the back. That's it. So let's go ahead and get this in. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put this card in here. I think to me that's a little bit easier. So this is the slot for it right here. So you can see right here in this board. So just going to gently put that in there. So it's nice and tight. And let me go ahead and turn this around so you can see it. So now I'm going to put the housing, and there's screws right here. So you put a screw right there and 2 screws here, and then you put the actual input for the Wi-Fi right there. So I'm going to go ahead and take these plastic sleeves off. So they're like really, really microscopic. If you could see that, they're small, but they're supposed to go in here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the housing on there. And luckily, I got some really small screws as well. So normally you won't need these unless you're not going to put this in here. But I'm going to go ahead and put it in. So it should fit right on top. And from what I remember on the manual, it looks like you actually put the screws in underneath and not from the top. So let me see if I could get that in there. So what I had to do is I had to twist it a little bit with my hand first, just so that I could get it set in there. Okay, finally. Okay, now it's time to put the motherboard in the case itself. Now, on your actual motherboard case, you should have came with some screws. These are actually the setting screws right here. So you're gonna put this on there, so then you could have some distance between the board and the actual case itself. It's elevated. Now on this particular case, 4 of them are already there for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what you want to do before you even do this is you want to put your motherboard on top of it just to see where the screws are missing. And so you want to go ahead and put that in there. So here we got 4 already right here, but then we still have to put one here, 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 here. So there's a total of 9 holes, and there's also a little nut that comes with it as well. Let me show you how this device that they gave you. So you can see that it's like this, and then whenever you set your screw in there, you could tighten it like that. See, and then you just screw it in like a normal Phillips. So that's what we're going to do right now. So first one's here. And I already knew which holes were missing because I've already put the board in there as a placeholder. Now before I tighten any of these, I'm going to put my board in here just to make sure the holes that I had put those in is correct. So you just line it up. Just kind of make sure that's correct, okay? This case is a little different because it doesn't flush all the way, meaning the actual I/O board doesn't come all the way out. It's actually inset in the middle. And what I've noticed about this case is there's a little, I don't know if you could see it, but there's a little lip right down here and here. So it doesn't actually like stay tightened on there, but you know, you just leave it here. And see, it kind of fits into these lips right there. So, see? So it just stays right there. And now, you actually want to get your board in there. Okay, I got all my setting screws in there. I'm going to quickly tighten them. These are pretty hard to get to sometimes. So if you have like a smaller screw or a slimmer one versus something like this, that's nice as well. So you're going to go with the whole crisscross pattern. And that's it. Got the board in there. Okay, next one is the one that I think people also find annoying, and that's going to be connecting all of these to your motherboard, especially this one right here. I'm not going to be able to get a real close zoom, but you could probably follow along. And once again, I recommend you actually look at your motherboard manual to know exactly what goes where. And so let me see. So one of the things that this is actually on the case itself. And so one of the wires that it has is this right here. So this is the HD audio. And from the motherboard manual, the audio is actually right down here. And so you want to make sure things match. And then the next thing is there is a USB one. So there's USB. And I've went through the manual a few times, and so I kind of know where things are supposed to be. Okay, and the final one is this one right here. And this one is pretty much the most painful one, I would say, out of all the wires. But like I said, you definitely want to look at your manual because there's certain ways that you have to put it in because there's a positive and negative. And for each one of these, if you look on the back, I don't think you could see it there, but if there's an arrow on the back, that means it's positive. But if you look at your manual, that should explain pretty clearly for the most part how you need to arrange it. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. Got all the main connections in there. Audio, all your power controls are here. USB 3 and your USB 2.0, it's all there. CPU, motherboard back here. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and install the GPU. This is going to be the MSI RX 470. Okay, this bad boy is finally going to get put to use. Take this off. And now we're going to go ahead and head over to the board. Make sure you remove this as well. This is going to go into your PCIe slot like that. So let's go ahead and put this in the actual board. Okay, so where we're going to put the GPU is actually, there's two PCIe slots, but you want to use this first one right here, the PCIe. This is actually PCIe slot 2, and it's going to take up two PCI slots, so you want to take these off, and then we're going to set the GPU right in there. Okay, so one of the things that the case came with is this bar right here, and you could actually put this right here in the case, and what it'll do is it will connect to your GPU and it'll keep it a lot steadier, but I don't really need it. You'll probably use this if you were doing a, in this case, a crossfire setup, dual GPUs, but I'm not going to need that, so I'm not going to use this. So now we have the two PCI slots open here in the back. We'll go ahead and put in our GPU, RX 470. So wow, that's beautiful. So push this back, and then you just put this in here. So it just snaps on, and then when that clicks, that means it's in and it's tight. Now you can go ahead and put the screws back in, and then I'll put this cover back in here. Okay, so the way this works here, this is actually 6 and there's 2, and then when you connect it together, like so, it becomes 8 pins, and then you just plug it in here. And there it is. That's your VGA. It's connected. So good. GPU's in there, almost ready to rock and roll. So next up, going to put in the two hard drives. They're both SSDs, which is going to be awesome. This 250 gigs is going to be primarily for the OS and programs, and then this one is going to be storage. So let's go ahead and get them in. Okay, first up we got the Crucial SSD. Nice. Maybe you can use that as well. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. And then secondly, we got the SK Hynix 250 gig. Get that open. Okay, so got that right there. Great, so we got both of these open and ready to go. Nice. Let's go ahead and put this inside the cases. And another thing is we also got the two SATA cables to connect this. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I like this design for the case. So you just unscrew this right here. So just take these out and you'll be able to mount your SSDs in there really easy. So this is where I'm going to put the 250 gig. So there you go. And what you would do is you would actually just mount your SSD like this, like so, and then you put the screws in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And your motherboard should have came with some screws for an SSD or a hard drive actually. And there's two different types. The one you want to use is for the 2.5 inch because that's for the SSD. So let's go ahead and get those on there. So with this you got two connections. One is actually for the data and one is for the power. Okay, from your motherboard and case, your motherboard, you should have got like a SATA cable, and then your actual case should have had a power supply, so you're going to connect both of these to each SSD. Okay, finally got both SSDs in there, ready to go. Okay, it's getting ridiculously close now. As you can see, got pretty much almost everything in here. Got the motherboard, cooling fan, CPU, SSDs, GPU, all the wiring looks like it's correct. The power supply is all connected. I've got it hooked up to the monitor, and right now all I'm doing is I'm just going to start it up to see if the BIOS comes up, and if it does, then that's a good sign. Could move forward and finish this off. So let's go ahead and try it. Press the power button. Okay, let's go ahead and try it. That's a good sign. And I do have it connected to the MSI GPU, so I'm not sure if the video output's going to come out of that or, okay, that's not good. It turned off. Okay, so it might take a minute for it to come up. Let me keep shutting off. CPU or memory change. Okay, so press F1. Oh, perfect. It came up. So this is that was kind of scary at first when it shut off. But this is actually the MSI BIOS, and so I'm really happy that this came up. And let me see. I don't know if my mouse works. Yeah, it works. So everything's super quiet. I'm not done yet. I just wanted to see if it would come up, and it did. So let's go ahead and move on and finish this off. Okay, now it's time to add some cooling fans, and I got 7 of them right here. Quite a few. You would think that you wouldn't need that many, but you want to keep it cool, and I didn't even know you could add that many fans. But this is one of the few cases that didn't come with the default fan right here, which is kind of weird. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a fan here, of course, and then I'm going to add 3 fans right here. And all of these fans, these are all 120 millimeters. I think the company is Honbontec. So these are 120 millimeters, and the bearing types are fluid dynamic, which I heard are pretty good. And they do have different LED lights, which is going to be cool. And I'm also going to add 3 more fans down here, and so there's going to be a total of 7 fans, and so that's quite a bit. So I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to get this in there in terms of where I'm going to plug it in. So there's only so many plugs for the fans in the motherboard, but I think you could daisy chain these, and so I'm going to go ahead and try that out and get this cooling worked out. Okay, so before we go further, let's go ahead and open up one of these to see what we got. Boy, this is a lot of fans. So there's the fan, LED as well. I'm not sure where the LEDs are, but we'll see how that looks. And then here are some screws. Now this also has these rubber screws, and I'm going to use these where I can because they do minimize the amount of vibration and noise. And these are if you want to connect it straight to the power supply. So typically you'll plug this into the motherboard. There's fan plugs that you could plug it in. However, you know, if you only have so many places to plug it in, you might have to plug it straight into the power supply. When you do that, that means the fans are running continuously. Whereas if you plug it straight into the motherboard is going to control when the fans go on and off. And you could have more control there too. And then also this wire right here, if I understand it correctly, this will actually make the fans run at a lower voltage. So although they don't cool as well, they are quieter. So I'm not going to use this because I might use it, but I don't think I'm going to use this. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the easiest one first, which is back here. And then the ones down here, this is going to be kind of unique. So let's go ahead and start off with the one next to the CPU. Okay, so for this one, this is going to be for the CPU cooling. So I'm going to put in the plug, which is right next to the CPU. And the fan's actually going to be facing that way. So it's going to be like this. So let me go ahead and put this plug in here. Okay, got that fan in there. Now it's time to install 3 fans down here. And this is a unique design. They got this dust collector right here. You can just slide out, which is nice. Now, the only thing is, in order to get these other 3 in there, you actually have to remove these feet. And these are very nice. They're rubber. They really, not only do they look cool, but they actually serve a purpose. But in order to get to them, you actually have to take these out and then unscrew it. So I'm going to have to take these rubber stops out and then unscrew it just so that I could get to the fan and put the screws in right there. So as you can see right here, easy to take out these rubber blocks. Okay, so I got both of these out. I'm going to set that aside. And now it's time to get the 3 fans in here. Okay, I got the 3 fans here. The only thing is, I'm not sure how I'm going to power all 3 because there's only one fan connection here to the motherboard. So I'm thinking there might be a way to daisy chain this. Hopefully I don't have to buy an accessory. So let me go ahead and get these in there. So it looks like I'll only be able to get 2 fans down here because of the power LED HDD cables. They're actually in the way. Now in terms of like connecting a whole bunch together, you can daisy chain these. If you just like you'd have to connect it to your power supply though, so they would be running all the time unless you had a way to adjust it. But basically, you know, you would just plug this right here into this spot right here, and then from there you would actually connect this. This should be to your this should go to your power supply, and then the other fan, you would plug it in here. So it would be like a daisy chain thing. However, I'm not sure how that's going to work in terms of running all the time, but I can't think of any other way except to buy another accessory. So let me go ahead and put this in as well. Now for the top 3 fans, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to use screws on these because they are adjustable, meaning you can move it left and right, and they're not just simply holes in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put these 3 in here. Okay, so I got all 3 fans on here, and boy, it's kind of difficult to get in there because with the screws, these fans don't have any threads, and so you kind of have to force it in there, but that's how it looks. Looks pretty sweet. Now, I still haven't figured out how to get all the fans running. I thought I could daisy chain them, but it doesn't look like it works that way. So right now, I'm just going to connect one to the actual remaining fan input, and then I'll figure out how else to do that. Now, I'm not going to put the base in yet. I'm going to run it to see if the fans work and to see if the temperature goes down. And then after that, I'll go ahead and figure out how to get these other fans working. So basically, all 4 fans are going to be working, which is the maximum amount of inputs that I have for fans. And then these other 2, I'm going to figure out how to get those running as well. So including the CPU cooling fan, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them going to be running at the same time. However, later, once I figure these other out, you know, it's going to be 7 fans running. So let's go ahead and try this out and see if it works. Like there was a solution to the power supply, or actually the power for the fans. You can daisy chain them, and then this very last input, you have a SATA input for the power supply right here, and I just plug that in and it should power all 3 of them. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, before I actually put the feet back in and the dust filter back in, I want to make sure that all these fans work. And these should be running all the time because it is directly connected to the power supply. And then these other 3 fans are actually connected to the motherboard itself. So the motherboard is actually going to be controlling when they turn on and off. So let's go ahead and try this out, and hopefully it works. So let's go to the BIOS, and I want to see if the temperature is any different. Yeah, good. Awesome. So it looks like things are running, and about the only thing left that I need to do is actually 2 things. First, put in the operating system. It's definitely going to be Linux Mint 18. And then also, I'm going to actually do some cable management because it's kind of messy back there. It's a little janky up here too, but I love this case and the fact that it gives you so much space. And from there, you know, we just wrap it up. Put an operating system on there, and as you can see, it says reboot or select proper boot device. So now we're going to see whether or not this is going to work, meaning I can install the operating system, and I could also see the 2 SSDs that I have. So let's go ahead and try this out. So I got my USB in here, so let's go ahead and start it up, and hopefully it'll boot up from the USB and we can go straight into installing Linux Mint 18. Good, the light's on. That's always a good sign. Great. Linux Mint Cinnamon. Wow, I am so super excited. So it looks like all the fans are working, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the feet back on and do some like really quick wire management, and then after that I got my Monster Linux PC, and there's going to be so many things that I'm going to be able to do with this. So I'm going to go ahead and install this, and the drivers, they're probably not going to work right away, so that's going to be something I'm going to have to spend some extra time on. But let's go ahead and install Linux Mint. So a couple of good things. First thing is it recognized Wi-Fi, so my Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, pain in the butt connection worked. And on top of it, it also sees the Ethernet connection. And here, most importantly, it sees the two different SSD drives. So I'm going to install it on a 250 gig SSD drive and save the 750 gig for actually my storage space. So let's go ahead and install. Wow, that was just blazing fast. It took about 10 minutes, maybe less, to install. So now it's the moment of truth. I'm going to go ahead and restart the computer. So it should boot up from the hard drive. Okay, remove your installation and press enter. Been through this many times. Let's see what happens. So I just restarted it. Let's see what happens. All right, Linux Mint logo came up. Awesome. Yes. Let's go ahead and type in my password. Oh yeah, Linux Mint is here, and what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to set up the actually drivers and everything. But yeah, everything is set up. I put in a few wires. I'm gonna go ahead and put these feet back in, and gonna enjoy using this brand new system. And there's still a lot that I need to do, but overall it is done finally. Okay, so geeks, I can't believe this Monster Linux PC is finally done. This thing is just amazing. I can't imagine what other things I could do with this. So first and foremost, I have to thank my brother. For getting all these wonderful parts at amazing prices. This is so much power that I really don't know what I'm going to do. And then also at the same time, I want to thank all of you for watching this and following my journey on this Monster Linux PC build. And now that this is done, I'm going to enter a whole new world of content, not only for Linux, but many other things that I couldn't do before with my pawn shop laptop. So once again, thank you for watching. And as always, if you did like these videos, be sure to leave a like, subscribe. And if you did get a lot of value out of this, just keep on commenting, keep on sharing ideas, and keep on being geek. And I'll see you on another episode. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com. And I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.